this all right, hon? Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. This is a very good turnout, short notice and lunchtime and all that. But it's for a very important reason, because at 3 o'clock today we go back into the Joint Committee on Climate Action, Communications and the Environment with this Climate Emergency Measures Bill, which is all about basically keeping it in the ground. And it is an attempt, as repeatedly been explained, to get the message across to this government, to the state, and indeed globally to other countries, that climate action is needed now, not in 5 years or 10 years time. We need to do it now. We have examples from 4 other countries, Belize, New Zealand, Costa Rica and France, who have done basically the same thing that this bill sets out to do, which is to instruct governments not to issue any further licenses for oil or gas exploration if the carbon levels remain above 350 parts per million in the atmosphere. At the moment they're at 412 or thereabouts and rising. So it's a very, very serious attempt to say that the known science, and we know the science and accepted the science for at least a decade now. There are a tiny minority like maybe Healy Rays and Donald Trump that don't accept the science, but the rest of us sensible people do, and that science tells us that we must leave 80% of known fossil fuels in the ground if we are to combat the overheating of the planet and the disastrous consequences that that's having. So that's what this climate emergency measures sets out to do. But of course it ain't that easy. We had our legislative scrutiny last July. We had witnesses in from Oil Change International. We had witnesses in to explain to us how this could be replaced, the measure of extracting oil and gas could be replaced with serious investment in renewable energies, both wind and solar and wave power. We had scrutiny of the bill for 2 or 3 days, and since then we've been waiting to get to this point. But just to explain briefly what has happened, and these are my words, that in the interim, a number of senators who took absolutely no interest in the scrutiny of the bill, but who are on the Joint Committee, that's the committee that's made up of the Dáil and the Seanad, have come in to vote against this bill proceeding any further. And it has meant that the bill, with 6 votes in favour of it proceeding and 6 votes against it proceeding, is caught in what we're calling a limbo. And it can't move anywhere because standing orders won't allow it to move anywhere. And we have tried to amend it to allow it to move sideways, backwards, frontways, to get it back to where it belongs, to the floor of the Dáil, so that a report can be laid to the elected members of Dáil, who will then determine what they want to do with this bill. And I contend, and I honestly believe this, that if we got it back to the floor of the Dáil, it would proceed. Because people who are elected by, the voters into Dáil are very aware that there's a growing concern, a growing anger about climate change in this country and beyond. We're seeing school children protest and taking strike action already in different parts of the planet, but very significantly on the 15th of March there will be a global day of action of school children against climate change. TDs are feeling the pressure on this issue and they will want this bill to move forward. So we want this bill back into the Dáil where it belongs, where those who we elected to do the business that they're supposed to do need to make the decision that they should morally and practically make, and that is to do something the government are trying to filibuster, delay and block, to do something meaningful about climate change. If Leo Varadkar once more says we're a laggard and we're going to take this serious, or indeed the new minister says it, I'm telling you all, don't believe a word of it. For as long as they block this bill and hold it in limbo, they're absolute hypocrites about any other measure that they intend taking on climate change. And indeed, thank you, and indeed the same could be said of the bill on single-use plastics that they're holding back. If they're serious about dealing with the environment and climate, then serious measures are needed. Not the idea that we have to put a carbon tax on ordinary people's homes, the homes that they heat or the cars that they drive. That ain't going to do it. We have to go for the jugular of the industry that is polluting and destroying our environment and our planet, and that is the fossil fuel industry. And unless we think big and start big, then we're tinkering around the edges of dealing with this crisis. And that is why this bill that we're trying to push through today will send a fundamental signal that this country is not messing. We're going after the fossil fuel industry. We're telling them to keep it in the ground, and any amount of lobbying by Tony O'Reilly or Providence Oil or Petrol Resources is not going to stop the people of this country being determined to save our environment and save our planet for future generations. So that's the message. And I just really do hope that the TDs and senators who are in there today do the right thing and vote for the amendment to allow a report go to the Dáil so that the bill can proceed. And I hope that everybody here has been lobbying them, sending them emails. Do so even now, it's not too late. But beyond that, what will change this country and what will change the agenda of climate action is feet on the street, is people power. It's the power of the young people who are going on strike on the 15th of March. It's the fact that we are going to continue to demonstrate, but we have to build that movement and those demonstrations to a massive size so that literally the heat is felt by every politician in this house and in every other parliament across the globe, and that our environment is respected, taken seriously, and that those who profit and gain from the plastic industry, from the fossil fuel industry, are made to feel the pressure and the pain. Their profits should be taxed. If we want a carbon tax, tax their profits and take it off the very, very wealthy on the planet, not off the poor. I'll finish by saying that I am extremely disappointed with Senator McDowell and the other senators for carrying through this filibustering and this mechanism which is blocking the bill going forward. It's not that I had any great love for Michael McDowell, quite the opposite, but I'm extremely disappointed that they feel they have a right to do this to a bill that's coming from Dáil and that they feel they have a right to block it, that they listen to Tony O'Reilly and Petrol Resources sooner than they listen to the children, the young people and the populations who are screaming at them to do something to stop the planet overheating. This is our time, this is our day. So even if this bill stays in limbo, and hopefully it won't, that it'll move on, we have to ensure that we build the biggest, loudest movement possible that rejects the idea that this is a problem for ordinary people, that it's about individual behaviour, but rather it's about changing the system under which we live. We will not change the climate if we don't change the system. Thank you.